Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into English cuisine today. And look, we have to address the reputation straight out of the gate. For a lot of people, English food, it conjures up images of, blandness, maybe boiled vegetables.
Right, something simple.
Utterly simple. And that dismissal, that assumption that it's low on spice, maybe low on ambition, that is just, it's ingrained in how the world thinks about food.
And that judgment, as you say, it's structurally unfair. I mean, the cuisine doesn't usually rely on these immediate fiery flavor profiles.
No.
But if you look closer, it has a character that is rich and strong and so deeply rooted in its own history.
So that's our mission today.
Exactly. Our mission today is to move past that superficial reputation, to stop viewing it just through the lens of flavor, and to reveal these powerful, almost relentless cultural forces that truly shape the British plate.
I love that idea that every dish is less of a recipe and more of a chapter in a survival story.
Right.
So what were the major editors of this cookbook? What were the forces that, fundamentally molded the food from this island?
Well, if we look at the historical timeline, we find 4 major pillars that really dictated every decision made in the kitchen, whether it was aristocratic or, incredibly humble.
Okay.
First, the climate itself. That's the obvious one. It just restricted what could be grown consistently.
Right.
Second, the huge societal shift of the Industrial Revolution and the demands of factory labor.
A massive change.
Third, you have the vast influence of colonial trade, which, flooded the ports with new resources, especially from the East. And finally, the very distinct and rigid reality of class division.
That intersection makes perfect sense. Food is always a reflection of society. But in the UK, these factors created something highly specific, highly functional.
Absolutely. And this gets us to the core insight we have to establish right away. These foods were created not for show, not to be flashy or complex, but primarily for survival, for working efficiency, and for establishing social order.
So they might be low on immediate spice.
But they are incredibly rich in historical function and narrative power.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's start with that, with the forces of necessity and industry. We're talking about the 19th century, right? Factories are booming. You have millions of working people who need cheap, high-calorie fuel to get them through a grueling 12-hour shift. Efficiency ruled everything.
Exactly. And the perfect optimized solution was born specifically to feed those industrial workers.
Fish and chips.
Fish and chips. It was a fusion of cultures, really, combining the fried fish tradition from Jewish immigrants with the need for cheap, filling potatoes for everyone else.
And it truly became the ultimate national identity meal. We know it involves fried cod or haddock and chips, but what's so fascinating is the custom that has lasted for centuries.
The vinegar.
The dousing of malt vinegar right over the top.
Yeah, and that acidic punch serves 2 functions. It cuts through the heavy fat of the frying, making the meal feel less dense. But historically, it also acted as a kind of rudimentary preservative. It allowed vendors more time to keep the fish edible while selling it quickly on the street. It was all about efficiency. No utensils, no plates in its earliest days.
Moving from that quick street-side fuel to the resourcefulness of the home kitchen, that's where we find the origin of the classic pies.
You're talking about shepherd's pie and cottage pie? They emerged from extremely humble origins. I mean, they represent the maximum use of every possible scrap. It's hearty, minced meat and vegetables protected by that beautiful, insulating blanket of mashed potatoes.
I've always found the naming of this dish fascinating. People use the names interchangeably, but they really shouldn't.
That's right. The crucial distinction is what defines the name. It is shepherd's pie if it's made with lamb, historically, the meat of the poor, or what was available from the flock.
And cottage pie.
Cottage pie is if it is made with beef. It's a wonderful example of using whatever meat scraps you had or, the leftovers from the Sunday roast to create a satisfying calorie-dense dish that lasted through the week.
This theme of absolute utility and necessity is best embodied by one dish, in my opinion. My favorite example of genius design in English food is the Cornish pasty.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a half-moon pastry filled with meat, potatoes, and onion.
But it wasn't just a snack. It was an entire meal engineered for a specific job site, the deep, dangerous tin mines of Cornwall. Workers needed something substantial that they could literally carry in their pockets down into the earth.
And the detail that really elevates this from a simple recipe to a piece of history is that memorable thick edge, that crimp.
That's the genius part. The edge crimp was intentionally made thick, crusty, and inedible.
Inedible, really?
Yes. Think about the conditions. The miners' hands were covered in grime, oil, and crucially, arsenic dust from the tin ore.
Wow.
So they could hold the thick crimp as a handle, eat the clean, hot filling, and then safely discard the contaminated handle down the mine shaft.
That is profound. It's not just functional design, it's life-saving engineering hidden in a pastry crust. It speaks volumes about the brutal realities of industrial labor.
It is pure labor-driven design. And similarly, you have bangers and mash.
Sausages and mashed potatoes.
With that rich onion gravy. The term bangers itself actually comes from the war years.
That's right. When did it become so widespread?
During and after World War II, the name bangers emerged because rationing and scarcity meant sausages were often made with lower quality meat and a lot of water.
Ah.
So they would literally burst or bang when you cook them rapidly under intense heat. It was cheap, it was available, and it was designed to maximize energy output on minimal rationed resources.
Right.
These weren't culinary extravaganzas. They were structural components designed to keep a population running.
Okay, that covers the food of necessity, of survival, and the Industrial Revolution. Let's transition now to the food of status, of ritual, because British culture is so invested in tradition and defined breaks in the day.
Precisely. And if we connect this to our second pair of pillars class distinction in colonial trade, these next dishes speak directly to establish order, status, and the vast reach of the British Empire. We have to start with the full English breakfast.
It's often described as starting the day as if donning armor. It's an enormous commitment of time and calories.
It is a deliberate and powerful concept. This massive plate egg, sausage, bacon, mushrooms, tomatoes, baked beans was a product of the Victorian era.
Right.
This idea of a powerful empire breakfast. It was designed to display abundance and establish a sense of vigor and high status for the people running the industrial and political engines.
But hold on, if the goal across society was efficiency, doesn't a huge plate requiring multiple cooking steps seem wildly inefficient for the average factory worker? Was this more of an aspiration than a reality?
That's a fantastic distinction. For the true working class, a piece of bread and tea might be all there was. But for the aspiring middle and upper classes, this breakfast was a declaration of stability.
Of wealth.
Of wealth, exactly. It signaled, I have the time and the resources to eat this much food, and I won't need to eat again until late afternoon. It established the structure of their day, which contrasted sharply with the immediate utilitarian eating of the working poor.
That sets the routine for the start of the week. Now let's talk about the cultural backbone for the end of the week. Roast beef and Yorkshire pudding.
The Sunday roast.
Sunday roast.
This is truly foundational. It is a mandatory, customary family meal eaten after church on Sundays, and the composition is key. Oven-roasted beef, a huge investment and display of luxury, and those amazing Yorkshire puddings.
And the Yorkshire pudding is genius in its preparation. It's born out of thrift, really.
It's the perfect historical circularity. They are traditionally cooked in a pan placed beneath the roasting meat.
To catch the dripping.
To rise using the precious beef drippings. Not only does this stop the drippings from being wasted, but those animal fats are what give the batter its deep, savory flavor and unique structure. It transformed a potential waste product into a celebrated side dish.
The Sunday roast is explicitly called the backbone of English home culture. It just shows how deeply these traditions are intertwined with identity and the weekly calendar.
It reinforces togetherness, structure. But if the Sunday roast is the backbone of the home, then Beef Wellington represents the absolute apex of aristocratic dining and status. This dish is pure, unapologetic extravagance.
It sounds incredibly elaborate. We're talking about beef tenderloin wrapped in a mushroom paste, duxelle, and then encased in puff pastry.
It's highly complex because it is designed to impress and to demonstrate mastery. The duxelles, for anyone who doesn't know, is a finely chopped mixture of mushrooms, shallots, herbs, cooked down to this intense paste.
And it serves a purpose.
It acts as a moisture barrier, protecting the delicate puff pastry from the raw meat.
So it's technical, not just pretty.
Precisely. And it's unforgiving. The puff pastry completely hides the internal temperature of the beef. If you overcook it by just 2 minutes, the entire expensive tenderloin is ruined.
So serving a perfect Beef Wellington is a powerful demonstration
of the kitchen's resources, skill, and precision. A far cry from the utilitarian pasty.
To round out the ritual segment, we have to talk about afternoon tea. This is where that third pillar, colonial trade, really comes into focus.
Absolutely. Afternoon tea is defined not just as a meal, but as a rigid ritual in itself, designed to bridge that long gap between the massive, full English and a late aristocratic dinner.
You have tea, Small, savory sandwiches, and of course the stars of the show. Rich, delicious scones.
With the famous accompaniments, milk jam and clotted cream.
For listeners who haven't experienced it, what exactly is clotted cream?
It's unique. It's essentially a thick, high-fat cream that has been gently heated to steam and then cooled, which allows a thick crust of clots to form on top. It has this incredible richness and density.
It's very different from regular whipped cream.
Well, worlds apart. It represents indulgence and a mastery of berry processes.
And the tea itself, which is central to the whole affair, is the direct liquid evidence of the empire's reach.
It is the product of colonialism, of global trade routes, bringing caffeine, sugar, spices from distant lands directly to the British consumer. The entire ritual, the source material notes, is the origin of the famous 5 o'clock myth.
Ah.
It cemented a dedicated, formalized break in the day, reinforcing social routine and economic status through the display of these exotic goods.
Okay, that gives us the full spectrum from the mine shaft to the manor house. Let's move now to a fiercely regional wildcard and then the state of the cuisine today, because no discussion of British food is complete without acknowledging this next one.
Even though it technically originates north of the border.
We must pause for haggis.
We must.
Yes, acknowledging its Scottish origin, but it is considered a foundational part of the broader British culinary identity. For those unfamiliar, we are talking about sheep, offal heart, liver, lungs mixed with oatmeal, suet, and spices.
And traditionally encased and cooked in the animal's stomach.
It certainly isn't for the faint of heart.
No, it's often described as being for the brave palates. What's fascinating here is that, despite its intensely challenging composition, it holds immense ceremonial importance. It's mandatory to eat on Burns Night, complete with elaborate poetry and ritual.
So it takes that concept of function we discussed earlier, survival, and elevates it into profound cultural ceremony.
Exactly.
So we've journeyed from pocket pasties designed to survive industrial poisoning, to the extravagance of aristocratic beef, and now to ceremonial offal. It's quite the history lesson. But what about today? Is this cuisine still operating strictly under the rules of the 19th century?
Not at all. And what's fascinating now is that the foundational structure is so incredibly strong, built on those pillars of order, utility, resourcefulness, that modern English chefs are now able to build upward.
They have a base to work from.
A strong base. They are incorporating world-class techniques, leveraging ingredients sourced globally, incorporating the flavors introduced by trade and immigration.
Yeah.
But they are applying them to these classic structures.
So they're honoring the story while adding modern flavor and polish. What does this all mean for you, the listener? We started by acknowledging the simple reputation, and we've seen that the food is a direct consequence of climate, industry, empire, and class.
The true insight here is that English cuisine is defined by its function, its ability to support life, labor, and structure more than its immediate flavor profile.
Oh.
This is the food that built an empire and sustained a working population through immense social change.
It provided structure and sustenance when they were most needed.
It really did.
Which leaves us with a provocative final thought for you to explore next time you're debating whether to add vinegar to your fish and chips. Given this incredible resourceful history and functional genius we've just discussed, we're left with the most interesting question of all.
Which is?
Why exactly did English cuisine earn such a consistently poor reputation in the first place when its history is so rich?
Dive into that gap between function and fame, and you might find the next deep dive waiting for you. Indeed, it's time to ask where the narrative went wrong.
A perfect place to leave off. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.